Hello and welcome to the channel. Let's get into the story. It is reported that the first set of refugee white South Africans are expected to be in the United States very soon. But I doubt this because AfriForum would be celebrating. And then we look at this unemployment rate in South Africa and also why it is such an issue to see other Africans coming in and taking up space. Kuningi, guys, when it comes to South Africa. Please give this video a thumbs up in support of this channel. Let's take a look at the sentiments around this. What are your thoughts on this?
Have you heard people make the claim that there are over 140 race-based laws in South Africa, and specifically that these laws are discriminatory towards white people? Well, I have made about a 45-minute-ish video analyzing, investigating, and looking at this claim to discover what the truth behind it actually is. Now, there are many of these laws that do not actually even explicitly reference race or racial groups. And then, of course, in my opinion, none of these laws actually unfairly discriminate against white people. So the next time that someone tries to tell you that there are 140 plus laws in South Africa that discriminate against white people, you can tell them that that is actually not the case.
Because if you think apartheid is better, there's definitely something wrong with your head.
Ngisaziphumelela on a Sunday. Nango Hassan sendela video in the DMs and bengithi ngiyayignore, but I just couldn't. So this video, it highlighted the difference between BEE law as well as apartheid law. Now this is especially important for number one, abantu who were not there during this time. This will be your Gen Zs and your later millennials. And number two, abantu abathanda ukuthi video and share widely, because it's through awareness, guys, that we can actually do better. So, bugela.
During apartheid in South Africa, a series of discriminatory laws and policies were enacted to enforce racial segregation and maintain white minority rule. These policies, often termed pillars of apartheid, included the Groups Areas Act, the Population Registration Act, and the Pass laws. These laws restricted the movement, housing, employment, and education of black South Africans, creating a system of vast inequalities and oppression. There's a Group Areas Act, 1950. This act mandated the segregation of neighborhoods and housing, forcibly relocating black South Africans from areas where they were not designated to live. Population Registration Act, 1950. This act classified all South Africans by race, white, black, Indian, and colored, creating a racial hierarchy and forming the basis for subsequent discriminatory policies. Pass laws. These laws required black South Africans, only black, not colored and Indian, to carry pass books, internal passports, that restricted their movement and freedom, particularly in urban areas. The 1952 Pass Laws Act was a key example of racial discrimination. Separate Amenities Act, 1953. This act mandated separate facilities for different racial groups, creating segregation in public spaces like hospitals, parks, and libraries. Bantu Education Act, 1953. This act established a separate inferior education system for black South Africans, designed to produce a workforce for white-dominated industries. Education for non-white children was severely restricted and of lower quality compared to that of white children. True. Okay, Land Acts. A series of land acts, including the Black Land Act and the Development Trust and Land Act, set aside a disproportionately small percentage of land for black South Africans, non-white South Africans, leaving them with little economic opportunity. This is now everybody, all non-whites, were forced to live in overcrowded townships on the outskirts of white cities, Bantustans, which are the homelands. The government forcibly relocated black people to designated homelands or Bantustans, which were underdeveloped and lacked adequate infrastructure and economic opportunities. Numerous other laws, such as the Immorality Act and the Prohibition of Mixed Marriages Act, criminalized interracial relationships and marriages. Suppression of opposition. Political opposition groups and movements advocating for black rights were harassed and suppressed. Economic discrimination. Job reservations Certain jobs were reserved exclusively for white workers, while non-white people were restricted to lower-paying jobs or denied employment altogether. Economic exploitation. Black workers, all non-white workers, were paid lower wages than white workers for the same work, yes. And their labor was used to benefit the white economy. Unequal access to services. Non-white communities lacked access to basic services like sanitation, clean water, and healthcare. Some townships didn't even have electricity. The first time they got electricity was after 1994. These policies created a system of systemic racism and oppression, denying non-white South Africans their basic rights and freedoms. They had a profound and lasting impact on South African society, resulting in economic inequality, social division, and a legacy of injustices that continues to be addressed even today. So you make up your mind, white people, and those non-whites who also think, oh, apartheid was better. Better make up your mind. Better make up your mind. If you think apartheid is better, there's definitely something wrong with your head. Definitely.
The Employment Equity Act Amendment of 2023. Now, you cannot speak of the amendment if you have not read the original act of the Employment Equity Act of 1998 and then the amendment made in 2014. The reason for that is you need to understand what was the original reason for implementing the Employment Equity Act. Now, the original reason for the Employment Equity Act was to prevent discrimination on the basis of race, color, gender, etc. Right? But most importantly, to ensure for the redress that was caused by apartheid in the workplace. Very important. The Employment Equity Act, or the amendment of 2014, employers were asked to provide the Department of Labor with an employment equity plan where they will propose what it is that they will do within the specific sector in order to ensure that there will be a redress of the unbalance created by apartheid, right? So they needed to diversify. They needed to create a plan and say that we're going to have this amount of white management, this amount of black management, colored Indians, etc. They had to propose it. That was 2014. If you look at the amendment is targeted at a specific sector or specific sectors that did not do what it is that they proposed within their employment equity plans. So there are 18 sectors, and the amendment is a redress. It is a redress. It is not a permanent amendment. It is a proposal for a redress over a 5-year period where managerial or senior positions need to be reformed. Because we know when it comes to managerial and senior positions, they are predominantly held by white, Indian, and coloreds. Now, in a country where 60 million people live, of which 50 million of your population is black, and 10 million are white, Indian, and colored, does it make sense that there are still 18 sectors or 18 industries where they have not been able to diversify? They have not been able to implement the plans that they proposed to government in order to ensure that there will be a change within managerial positions. So no, it is not unconstitutional. It is a rectification of the imbalance created by apartheid.
Well, there you have it, guys. It is a very difficult position that South Africa finds themselves in terms of even geopolitics right now. We are being pulled left, right, and center. Everybody wanting a piece of this here, South Africa, where the white people are wanting to have that authority back, whereas we are having our neighbors wanting to have a piece of the small black pie that is left for South Africans. But some are even bringing forward forward that all of this trouble is brought forward by the ANC and how they then went about implementing BEE. That was meant to uplift more black companies and bring more employment into South Africa, but because the structure was flawed, right, or those that implemented are using flawed means, they are not providing sustainable employment, whereas those that were linked with the apartheid regime, who are also getting tenders from the government, were providing sustainable employment. What are your thoughts on these matters? And also, how is it that the law is not enforced properly? We have labor laws in South Africa. We have all sorts of guidelines on how to bring in scarce skills when necessary. So definitely everybody is feeling this economic crisis that we are experiencing in South Africa, but we cannot ignore our neighbors, Zimbabwe. Because of our history, we know what oppression looks like, and we know what a hostile takeover looks like. Let me know what your sentiments are down below. Please give this video a thumbs up, and I will see you on the next video.